Howdy doody, this is game 3 from Executive and Workhorse. Workhorse being the Terran and Executive, the Protoss. My goodness, Anubis, we have seen the cheese from Executive. The first game, some proxy gateways, not successful in the in the least. But the second game, a proxy pylon warped in some DTs that was very effective against Workhorse, who could not get enough scans down.
Yeah, that is quickly becoming his go-to strategy for Terrans that he doesn't know how to deal with.
Yeah, you know, he loves the DTs. We have a lot of experience with Executive. He went into this tournament thinking, I'm just going to go do something a little bit different. You know, last tournament we didn't see, I don't know that we saw maybe 1 or 2 games where he went DTs, and he got fairly far into the tournament, so maybe he's just blowing off a little steam from having lost in his last tourney.
And the 2 scouts get locked up right there. I don't know if you saw that.
I think maybe it was a thumb war or something that they were doing. I'm not sure what was
Oh, and it does look like he's going to try and stick that probe down in the corner, and Workhorse will have none of it. He is sick of his cheese, and he's going to be looking for it this time, I'm sure.
Wow, yeah, Executive trying once again to go for the cheese. Maybe this will convince Executive to play a normal game this time. No confidence from that?
Yeah, I'm not willing to comment on that one. I'd be surprised if we saw a normal-looking game out of Executive.
The gateway is going down in his base, so he's not going to try again for the failed proxy gateways behind this in this little hallway.
Workhorse is walling off again as he chases that probe down. It is not being able to regen shields and is already down to 7 health. Oh, now it's down to 4. It does look like he is going to be able to take this out with that scout. Oh, and the Marine gets it.
Yeah.
And he quickly throws in a reactor. He probably will be going for that Marine Marauder gameplay again. He has had success with it that first game, and I think he would have had a lot of success with it that second game if he hadn't been cheesed.
Executive playing very similar to the last game, getting up that early cybernetic score, but we're not seeing any kind of drone in anywhere on Workhorse's side of the map, so maybe it is going to be a standard game from Executive. Got his 2 assimilators down, throwing down a second gateway. I'm just not sure. I don't want to commit and say that he's playing a traditional game just yet. We're not seeing any kind of forge, so maybe he's not going to do any kind of cannons.
Workhorse still working off of just 1 gas. You can get away with that with Terran if you are going Marine Marauder with a heavier emphasis on the Marines. Is again going for that concussive cell right off the bat.
Yeah, he's just sticking to his game plan in these matches, and if Executive is very observant, then he can try to strategize around the fact that Workhorse is just not trying anything new in these matches. Looks like he might be moving out. I don't know whether he might be moving out to push.
Put a little early pressure on. I think he'd be very successful with that.
Executive does have some sentries out, so he will be able to wall off if he gets into any trouble. And a robotics facility is going down, so maybe he is taking taking into account his opponent's past play in this tournament and going to go for some Colossus perhaps.
Executive getting a little supply blocked here. This is going to cause some problems. If he does try and push at his key point, he is going for the push. Zealots are on hold position. This is not what you want to see. He does end up walling off with those force fields.
And making a lot of sentries. look at the units tab here. He's got 5
Looks like the force field will go down again.
Yep, going to keep walling off as he makes more gateways. And I think by the time the Workhorse is able to get into his base, Executive's going to have too many units.
Oh, look at this. Executive is actually going for a warp prism. So he's going to do a little foolery in the back of his base.
My goodness. He refuses to play a normal game. I like this a whole lot, though. You never see warp prisms.
You did. He took that out right in front of Workhorse. I don't know whether or not he was able to see that.
The problem is that this warp prism, where does he have to land? Let's look at.
It looks like he is going to take it around the back side, and there is a section in the back right corner that Workhorse does not have vision of.
It's very small.
And Workhouse is sending the rest of his troops out to the front. This could be terrible for him.
Yes, yes, he needs some defense, and if Executive's able to sneak this in, then he is going to be able to do a whole lot of damage into Workhorse's base. But on the other hand, it is a huge force right outside of Executive's base, so he may be able to do a lot of damage himself.
In Workhorse's vision, you can see the stalkers, but he does not see the warp prism. Will he react in time?
Looks like Executive's actually pushing out
on his front,
and not doing anything with his stalkers right now. I can't help but think that's a mistake. As
he is now attacking with them.
Yeah, he is.
Focus firing the starport. I don't know how I feel about that. And he does lose all of his forces at the front.
Workhorse going to move in and try to take out these stalkers. Not sure he's going to be able to. Zealots warping in now. A lot more Zealots. And Executive has a good opportunity to do a lot of damage. Surprised he didn't keep going after that supply depot. Going to go straight for the money, it looks like.
Oh, he's not going to allow him to build up units. Oh, does lose his stalker with some poor micro. Alright, and Workhorse has decided to pull back all of his troops from the front to try and save his main.
Let's look at, let's see if no, it is not.
Unfortunately, he did not have his wall down, and his troops ran to the wrong side.
Oh, no.
Alright, there's enough troops here that Executive should make a full-on retreat with these units, but it does not look like he's going to.
He's going to lose all of those.
All but one. Oh, and the warp prism is going to go down. Oh, but he's pushing at the front now with 5 sentries. I don't know how I feel about this. Okay, it does look like he is going to pull back.
This has been a very interesting game for these two players, especially for Executive.
And
he has been able to...
Even with that much aggression, he's still so behind in food. Well, not as much as I would have thought, but still...
He's going to be behind in income very shortly, as Workhorse does have his orbital command center ready to plop down, and Executive has not even made any measure of going after an expansion himself.
His main may run dry quicker, however, he does have almost 10 more harvesters than his opponent.
And that is due to those Zealots being in that mineral line and doing so much damage. Workhorse again moving out with a large group of units. I think he really just wants to take out Executive very badly. He wants to finish this game.
Yep, and Executive has overtaken Workhorse in the food count.
Yeah, going directly after the army. Those legs are almost done. That's going to be vital in taking on this Marauder heavy army. Actually, there's not a whole lot of Marauders anyway. Mostly Marines at this point. But that is a very scary force from Executive. No upgrades.
If he gets the proper force fields on these units, he could terrorize Workhorse.
and Workhorse throwing down a bunker in front of his main. It looks like Executive's going to opt for going through this back hallway, trying to sneak into his opponent's base. I think that's going to be fairly effective.